Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update, guys. We have a detailed update today on the pattern as we go into June, and then our updated summer forecast as well. And I'll talk about some of the key details to monitor as we go throughout the summer months. Model data has been very volatile as of late, so I'm going to try to break through some of that noise in here and also highlight some of the extended range signals that they're trying to pick up on as we go throughout today's video. I did want to start out with the current radar right now. We do have a storm system moving through the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, with rain and storms extending all the way down through parts of Texas here. Your low pressure system right now is in northern Kentucky, and along the warm front here, some heavier rain in parts of the Ohio River Valley. And man, guys, this has just been the area all year long that has seen this storm track and that has had this rain. It has been a little bit less active the past 7 days, but you take a look at now the new rainfall that's coming from this morning, and all of a sudden areas along the Ohio River, once again, the last 7 days, more than an inch of rain. The area that's been drier across the northern Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, upper Midwest, it has rained in here. We click around. It has rained. It's not been dry, but for this time of the year, it's below normal. And I do think that we need to at least keep that in mind. The most excessive rains have been consistently down across the southern plains and into the deep south. Man, some of these areas, click around here. Some of these areas more than 6 inches of rain over the past 7 days. So just continuing to be very active. And the trends for these areas ahead have been wetter. And so I think that the pattern in this area will see more of the same as we roll things forward. Here's a look at that. Next 7 days, cooler than normal across the south and east part of the country, warmer than normal west coast and up into the Canadian prairies. The trend over the next 7 days has been wetter, specifically across parts of the southeast plains. All of a sudden, look here. 3 to 5 inches of rain across parts of southeast Kansas, Oklahoma, northern Texas, and into parts of Missouri. Additional rains along the Ohio River, and then picking rain back up across parts of the upper Midwest. Again, some of these areas have been less active the past 7 days. We should see pretty widespread 1-inch rainfall totals over the next 7 days. I think the bigger trend in terms of drier signals has been up across the Canadian prairies and parts of the northern plains. This has been an area over the past couple of runs that has trended much drier, and we'll take a deeper look at that here in a moment. As we go into the week 2 time frame, really no notable heat on the table that we can see right now out through the 12th of the month, guys. Maybe some slight warmer trends possible across the northern plains, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Ohio Valley trends even a little bit cooler late in this time frame with a cold front. And we take a look at the precipitation signal, it just continues to trend more active the further south and east that you go. This region in here, and especially across parts of the southeast plains, the Tennessee Valley into the deep south, much above normal precipitation likely as we go throughout the week 2 time frame. Drier to the west, and maybe more seasonable across parts of the northern plains, or even trending slightly drier. Taking a look here at what the blend of models had. This is a mix of 60 to 100 plus different weather models. This was what its forecast was 24 hours ago for parts of the northern plains and the Midwest. It was forecasting widespread 1 to 2 inches of rain across the Dakotas and into northern Minnesota. If we take a look at the latest run here, and this is with no rain really falling in this area, mind you, it has trended and cut those totals down by, I don't know, it's gone from 2 inches to 1/2 inch. So whatever the math is there, it lost 1.5 inches of rain in some spots across parts of North Dakota and South Dakota. It's trended the heavier rains further down to the south and to the east. I do think that this is something we need to monitor, because some of the data coming in as we go through June trending a little bit drier across parts of the Canadian prairies and the northern plains. So I also think the note here to keep in mind is model data very volatile right now. Confidence in general ahead going to be lower than normal. And I think that we need to watch trends very, very carefully ahead as data tries to sort out this tricky pattern. So right now, heaviest rains likely going to be across the southeast plains, Kansas, Missouri, down into parts of the deep south, but widespread additional rains, 1 inch plus above normal for this time of the year across much of the Midwest over the next 7 days. Taking a look here real quick, I also want to show this. This is the EPS. This was what its forecast was. We'll zoom in here to see it a little bit better. This is what its forecast was going back 3 days ago for the 8 to 15 day time frame, specifically June 4th to 10th. Central part of the country, it was very wet. It was active for the middle of the U.S., a little bit more seasonable east. Look at how that's changed just over the past couple of days. So again, this was 3 days ago. Here's the latest forecast, day 5 to 12, same time frame. Drier across the northern plains, north central part of the country, especially in here, drier trend in here, substantially wetter through this region in here. And again, I keep honing in on this persistence type of an idea, but this has been the area that's been the most consistently active this spring, and we just continue to trend in that direction again. Now, with this type of a signal, we also will see severe weather potential ramp up, probably in the central U.S. to start next week and then shifting a little bit further to the east with time. This is the CFS. All the colors that you see here just basically indicates higher than normal potential for severe weather. It's been very, very consistent for kind of the second week of June and beyond here, really through the middle part of June. The signal here is very, very active in terms of severe weather. I think that we're going to have multiple rounds that we're going to need to deal with across the Midwest, across the Ohio Valley, across parts of the southern plains and into the deep south as we go over the next several weeks. Now, in terms of how temperatures and precipitation versus normal trend through the middle to latter part of June, I'm watching this signal very closely. The tropical forcing has been weak for much of May. We're starting to see it come back alive. We're getting thunderstorm activity to redevelop here in MJO Phase 5, which is in Indonesia and in the Maritime. That thunderstorm activity looks to move across the Pacific Ocean and towards Africa as we get into the middle part of June. That's MJO Phases 8, 1, and 2 as we go into the weeks 3 and 4 time frame. If we take a look at years that match up the best with this idea, we have years like 2021, 2017, 2003, and 1997. I plotted these years here in the bottom left. You can see it does tend to favor the north central U.S. being a little bit drier, still very wet down to the south. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a little bit too dry in the Ohio Valley, but you can kind of get the picture, and it's very similar to the EPS Weekly. The EPS Weekly, it did do okay with seeing this more active pattern in early June, and so I think it's worth considering that this idea may not be too far off, which would be a drier trend for parts of the Midwest and the Northern Plains. The latest CFS Weekly shows the same kind of idea. Wetter south and east, a little bit drier across the north central part of the country. In terms of temperatures here, I actually pulled up, let me see here. I don't have it pulled up, but in terms of temperatures, it favors warmth further to the west, very similar to what the EPS Weekly has, and it favors some cooler air further down to the south and to the east. Here's what we average things out in terms of temperatures for this time frame. I think that with time, the northern plains, upper Midwest can trend a little bit warmer, but I still don't see substantial heat in the forecast through this period. If it's going to be anywhere, it's likely going to be on the West Coast. In terms of precipitation, I tried to mix the idea the best that I could of the data and the analogs. And that's slightly drier up here across the north central U.S. I left things at equal chances in the Midwest, the northern Ohio Valley, given some uncertainty. But, data, it is a bit drier through this area. If I had to circle an area, data's a little bit drier through here. I'm not quite sold on that yet, but it is something to keep an eye on late June. The initial idea that we had was after the first 15 to 20 days of June, this area would start to dry out. It's not off the table that that could still happen. Right now, still favoring things the further south and east that you go to be more active and to be drier the further north and west that you go. Now, is it bone dry? I don't think so. I think that there's still precipitation chances in this below normal area. And with the lack of heat, we're not likely dealing with, excessive dryness developing very quickly, but a little bit below normal for the time of the year, at least in some of these areas still dealing with drought conditions. In terms of June as a whole, I took these same years, took our tropical forcing analogs and plotted them for June. They match up nearly identical to what the EPS weekly has, also very similar to the GEFS weekly and the CFS. And so we've got multi-model support right now, and we have support from these analogs. Warmer north and west, cooler south and east for June. Matches up very close. In terms of precipitation, wetter the further south that you go. Both of these, the data in the analog here has the signal, pretty strong signal right through this area. It does favor some dryness developing northern plains and maybe parts of the upper Midwest. I think maybe late June, parts of Iowa, Minnesota, northern Illinois could turn a little bit drier after the month starts out a little bit more active. Here's how we average things out for June as a whole. Warmer across the northern tier of the U.S., much above normal temperatures in the west. Seasonable to cooler south and east, especially early in the month. And in terms of precipitation, right now we've kept this below normal area. Again, the month starts out more active in here, but there are some signals down the road that it could trend maybe a little bit drier. I will note we may do one more final update on this map, maybe some drier trends in here based off the trends, and I may bump up the above normal precip a little bit further north, certainly more into Kansas, Missouri, and along the Ohio River. So something to keep in mind there. In terms of summer as a whole, we've updated that outlook too, and I want to touch on it real quick. Really, the Pacific Ocean is cooperating as expected. We've got a negative PDO in here, warmth in the Central Pacific, negative PMM, cooler waters off the west coast of the United States, a neutral to cool ENSO state in here. That was all expected. Nothing has changed there. And I would argue, if you look at the next 14 days, the idea into early summer was that this area would be warmer. We're close to that. It's just a little bit weaker and further northwest. So to me, the Pacific pattern is cooperating. What is different, what has changed a little bit, the ocean temperatures off the southeast coast of the U.S. into the Gulf have trended very warm. The main development region where hurricanes typically form, cooler. This is what we call a negative AMO. Okay? What this tends to favor is a southeast U.S. ridge or a Bermuda high. Why is that important? Well, instead of the cooler air being allowed to go further south into the east and settle in the southeast part of the country and for the warmth to bleed into the plains, right? This warmth here and this ridge is preventing that from happening. You have a tendency for a Bermuda high, and so your cooler air is stuck a little bit further to the north and to the west. It's a minor difference, but it makes all of the difference in terms of precipitation. What's that allowing to happen? It's allowing for a consistently active pattern through this area in here, and at times it comes north. At times it comes north. What does that mean? Well, even if some of the north central part of the country stays drier, it might prevent things from being more extreme in terms of lack of moisture and heat. And a lot of it is related to what's happening in the Atlantic Ocean. If you look at our top years, factoring in a little bit more of the Atlantic Ocean signal, here's a look at how things average out. Still favors cooler air south and east, and maybe with time, the Northwest Plains can start to warm up. But down here, if I were to extend this off the map, it's a little bit warmer. And that's going to aid in a little bit more of an active signal, and you can see that here. It's still drier than normal, June, July, August, in the north central part of the country through here. But you can see it's not quite as strong of a signal. There's a little bit of a messiness to it. And I think ultimately what can happen is this area can average out drier than normal, but there's timely rains. There are periods that are more active, while the south and east part of the country, if you're too wet right now, it's probably going to stay wet. And that's just the signal that the data and the analogs are seeing right now. If there's a month that could be more notably warm in the northern plains, I still think it's July, still favoring much above normal temperatures in the north central part of the country. And I still favor a drier than normal pattern for the central U.S. into the month of July. Just not quite as extreme as the initial idea. And again, it's just that subtle change, that small little oceanic trend has made a big difference here heading into summer. In terms of how things all average out, much above normal temperatures, western U.S., parts of the Canadian prairies, could see some more wildfire issues this year. That's not out of the question. favoring things to be cooler further south and east, with time warming up across the upper Midwest and the Ohio Valley. And in terms of precipitation, the areas that we had dry are still relatively dry, just not as dry, not as extreme. So below normal northern plains, parts of the central plains, wetter than normal southern plains, and the southeastern part of the country. I wouldn't be shocked if at times, we kind of saw the last 7 days, if there can be some drier stretches through this area. I just think that when it rains, it could be heavy and will kind of prevent that area from averaging out drier for most of the summer. Given some of the plant delays and given still some midsummer hot and dry risks through this area, still favoring our yield forecast to be slightly below trend. In terms of beans, maybe a little bit better, still at or slightly below trend there. So that is something to keep in mind, kind of that combination of some late planting and still some midsummer heat and dry risk. So that's our updated weeks 3 and 4 outlook, June outlook, July outlook, and summer outlook as a whole. All of those are updated on the Clarity platform, guys. You can take a look at it there. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic into your May as we go through this weekend.